Commander Zalar pressed his scaled palm against the bioscanner, watching the detention level status displays flicker to life. Green lights, all systems normal. All prisoners sedated. All according to protocol. Except for Cell 17. The human female designated as Subject Terra 7 was supposed to be unconscious for another 6 rotations. The neural suppressant cocktail they had administered would keep a Brakari warrior comatose for a full cycle, and humans were supposedly weaker. Supposedly. Yet there she sat, cross-legged on her cot, sketching something on the wall with a makeshift stylus carved from her meal tray. Impossible. Zalar muttered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. He pressed the intercom button. Medical Bay, this is Detention Command. I need an immediate status check on sedative levels for Subject Terra 7. A pause. Then Dr. Corvin's nasal voice crackled through the speaker. Commander, our readings show full suppression. The subject should be experiencing complete neural shutdown. Zalar stared at the human through the reinforced viewport. She had paused her sketching and was now looking directly at the camera, one eyebrow raised in what could only be described as amusement. She gave a small wave. Your readings are wrong, Doctor, Zalar growled. She is not only conscious, she appears to be creating art. That cannot be. We administered enough dormazine to pacify a Krellian assault beast. A human nervous system simply cannot. Well, this one can. Zalar snapped, cutting the transmission. He initiated a security sweep of the detention level, watching thermal imaging cascade across his screens. 23 cells. 22 showing the appropriate low-energy signatures of sedated prisoners. Cell 17 blazed like a small star. The human, who had introduced herself as Captain Maya Torres before they had captured her ship, was not just awake. Her bio-readings suggested she was operating at peak alertness. Heart rate steady, brain activity through the roof. If Zalar did not know better, he would say she looked comfortable. Security Team Alpha to Detention Level 7, he commanded into his communicator. Full combat gear. We have a situation. As he waited for his team, Zalar pulled up the human's file. Captain Maya Torres, former military, tactical specialist. Captured during the raid on the human research station at Kepler-42, intelligence suggested she possessed critical information about human defensive capabilities. What intelligence had not suggested was that she might be immune to their most potent pacification drugs. The detention level doors hissed open, and 4 Brakari soldiers marched in, plasma rifles charged and ready. Zalar gestured towards Cell 17. The human is conscious and potentially dangerous. We need to. He stopped mid-sentence. Captain Torres had moved closer to the cell door and was holding up her wall sketch for them to see. It was not art, as Zalar had initially assumed. It was a map, a detailed, accurate map of the entire detention facility. Good morning, gentlemen, Torres called out cheerfully, her voice carrying clearly through the cell's audio pickup. I was wondering when you would notice. Though I have to say your security response time could use some work. Zalar felt his secondary heart skip a beat. The map showed not just the layout of Detention Level 7, but detailed schematics of the ventilation system, guard rotations, camera blind spots, and what appeared to be structural weak points, information she could not possibly have obtained from inside a sealed cell. How? He whispered. Torres tilted her head, feigning confusion. How what? How did I map your facility? How did I resist your drugs? How did I carve this into the wall without making a sound? You are going to need to be more specific, Commander. The fact that she knew his rank without seeing any insignia sent ice through Zalar's veins. He activated the cell's external speakers. You have been unconscious for 3 rotations. It is impossible for you to have gathered this intelligence. Torres laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and terrifying. Oh, Commander Zalar. That is where you are wrong. I have been awake since about 10 minutes after you injected me with whatever cocktail of alien sedatives you thought would keep me down. Your dormazine? Lovely stuff. Makes my fingertips tingle. Dr. Corvin's voice crackled through Zalar's communicator. Commander, this is impossible. No known physiology can. Human physiology, Torres interrupted. Somehow hearing the private communication. You studied Bracari nervous systems, Krellian assault beasts, even those triple-hearted merchants from Vega Prime. But humans? We are a bit different. She stood and walked to the cell door, placing one hand against the energy barrier. It sparked slightly at her touch, but she did not flinch. You see, Commander, humans have this annoying habit of adapting. Our bodies do not just resist toxins, they learn from them. They build immunity. They evolve in real time. That lovely dormazine coquette? By the second hour, my liver was breaking it down faster than you could pump it in. Zalar's hands moved instinctively to his sidearm. You are lying. Our intelligence reports indicate. Your intelligence reports are garbage, Torres said bluntly. Written by bureaucrats who have never actually fought humans, who think they understand us based on captured medical data and interrogation of civilian prisoners. You want to know the difference between a human civilian and a human soldier, Commander? She pressed both palms against the energy barrier now, and Zalar could see it flickering under the contact. A human soldier does not just survive, she thrives, she adapts, she learns. And she absolutely definitely does not stay put when you want her to. The energy barrier collapsed. Torres stepped out of her cell as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The 4 Bracari soldiers raised their weapons, but she held up her hands in a gesture of mock surrender. Now, before you start shooting, let me explain something. I have spent the last 3 rotations mapping every inch of this place. I know where your power generators are. I know where your communications array is. I know where you keep your weapons. And most importantly, she smiled, showing entirely too many teeth. I know where you keep the other human prisoners. Zalar's blood ran cold. You cannot have accessed restricted areas. Your security, Torres said, walking casually toward the guard station, assumes that prisoners stay in their cells. It assumes that someone who appears unconscious actually is unconscious. It assumes that humans follow the same biological rules as every other species you have encountered. She reached the guard station and, before any of the soldiers could react, placed her hand on the main console. Somehow, impossibly, it accepted her biometric input. The thing about assumptions, Commander, is that they make you predictable. And predictable enemies are dead enemies. Every cell door on detention level 7 opened simultaneously. What the hell did you do? Zalar roared, raising his plasma rifle as human prisoners began emerging from their cells. Most were still groggy from the sedatives, but several were already moving with purpose. I hacked your system, Torres replied cheerfully. Took me about 6 hours to crack the encryption. Not bad for a species you consider primitive. Though I have to admit, your biolocks were trickier. Good thing I borrowed some genetic material from one of your guards during shift change yesterday. Borrowed? Torres held up a small metal fragment. Amazing what you can accomplish with a sharp piece of meal tray and quick reflexes. Your guard sergeant Koltar might want to get that scratch on his arm checked, and maybe change his access codes. The detention level had descended into controlled chaos. Human prisoners were moving with military precision, clearly following some predetermined plan. Several had already disabled security cameras. Others were working on what appeared to be improvised weapons. This is impossible, Zalar repeated, but his words sounded hollow even to him. There is that word again, Torres said, now seated comfortably in his command chair. Impossible. You know, we humans have a saying about impossible things, Commander. We say that impossible is just another word for something we have not figured out how to do yet. She activated the facility-wide communication system, her voice echoing through every corridor and chamber. Attention all Bracari personnel. This is Captain Maya Torres of the Terran Defense Force. I am now in control of detention level 7. I am 17 human prisoners, all of whom are former military personnel, all of whom are very, very angry about being kidnapped. Zalar lunged for the emergency lockdown controls, but Torres caught his wrist with shocking strength. I would not do that if I were you, Commander. Lockdown protocols would seal us all in here together. And trust me, you do not want to be locked in a confined space with angry humans. As if to emphasize her point, one of the human prisoners, a massive man with scars covering his arms, cracked his knuckles loudly. Now, Torres continued her broadcast, I am prepared to discuss terms for the release of your personnel and the safe evacuation of this facility. But first, I need to speak with whoever is actually in charge here. And Commander Zalar. She looked directly at him. You are not in charge, are you? Zalar's mandibles clicked nervously. I command this facility. You command this detention level, Torres corrected. But someone else is running the show. Someone who thought it would be amusing to capture and experiment on human prisoners. Someone who is about to learn why that was a very, very bad idea. She released his wrist and stood, walking toward the main display screen. With a few quick inputs, she brought up a schematic of the entire complex. Sub-level 4, she mused. High security, restricted access, biohazard warnings. That is where your real commander is it not? That is where the experiments are happening. Zalar said nothing, but his body language confirmed her suspicions. Well then, Torres said, turning to address the assembled human prisoners. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have a rescue mission. Our fellow humans are being held 4 levels down, and I suspect they are not being treated as well as we were. She looked back at Zalar. Commander, you have exactly 5 minutes to contact your superior and arrange for the immediate release of all human prisoners. After that, we are coming to get them ourselves. You cannot reach sub-level 4, Zalar protested. The security measures were designed to keep prisoners in, not to keep angry humans out, Torres finished. There is a difference, Commander. A very important difference. She gestured to the map still displayed on the wall of her former cell. See, while you thought I was unconscious, I was actually studying this place, learning its weaknesses, planning for exactly this moment. But how? Zalar demanded. You were sedated. You were monitored. You had no access to your computer systems? True. No access to your personnel files? Also true, but I did have access to something much more valuable. Torres smiled. I had access to your guards. Zalar's confusion must have shown on his face, because Torres laughed. Commander, your people talk a lot. They complain about shift assignments. They gossip about facility operations. They discuss security protocols right outside prisoner cells, assuming that unconscious humans cannot hear them. 3 rotations of listening to guard chatter taught me everything I needed to know about this place. She walked over to one of the security terminals and began typing rapidly. Plus, human hearing is much more sensitive than you realized. We can detect ultrasonic frequencies. We can pick up conversations through ventilation systems. We can identify individual voices through multiple layers of soundproofing. Your guards thought they were speaking privately. They were actually giving me a guided tour. The terminal screen filled with data, showing facility schematics that were even more detailed than her wall map. And then there was the really interesting conversation I overheard yesterday. Something about a special projects division on sub-level 4. Something about live human subjects being used for weapons testing. Something about information extraction through neural probes. Torres's voice had gone cold, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop with it. That conversation, Commander, made this personal. She turned to face him directly, and Zalar was struck by how the human's eyes seemed to burn with inner fire. You see, the thing about humans is that we have this concept called justice. When someone hurts our people, we hurt them back. When someone threatens our species, we eliminate the threat. When someone decides to experiment on captured humans, she smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Well, that is when we stop being civilized. The facility's main alarm began blaring, indicating that security forces were mobilizing throughout the complex. Torres listened to the sound with apparent satisfaction. Right on schedule, she murmured. Commander, your people are about to make their biggest mistake yet. What do you mean? Zalar asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. They are about to try to retake this level by force, Torres explained. They are going to send armed troops against human prisoners who have nothing left to lose. They are going to discover that there is a significant difference between fighting humans who are trying to survive and fighting humans who are trying to make you pay. She activated the facility's internal monitoring system, showing security feeds from throughout the complex. Brukari soldiers were indeed mobilizing, moving in formation toward detention level 7. The funny thing is, Torres continued conversationally, your people keep making the same mistake. You keep treating humans like any other species. You keep expecting us to behave rationally, to surrender when outnumbered, to accept defeat when the odds are against us. The security feeds showed the first wave of Brukari troops reaching the detention level entrance. But humans do not surrender, Commander. We do not accept defeat. When you back us into a corner, we do not cower. We fight. When you threaten our people, we do not negotiate. We escalate, and when you make the mistake of thinking you understand us, Arsa's smile became predatory. That is when we remind you why humans are the apex predators of a death world. The detention level doors exploded inward, as Brukari security forces breached the entrance. But instead of finding cowering prisoners, they found 17 humans in defensive positions, armed with improvised weapons, and burning with righteous fury. The first Brukari soldier through the door took a sharpened meal tray to the throat. The second discovered that humans could throw objects with lethal accuracy. The third learned that human reflexes were much faster than Brukari intelligence reports suggested. "Welcome to the party, gentlemen," Torres called out over the sound of battle. "I hope you brought enough ammunition. You are going to need it." Commander Zalar watched in horror as his elite security troops were systematically dismantled by a handful of escaped prisoners using improvised weapons. The humans moved like a coordinated unit, covering each other, sharing resources, adapting their tactics in real time. It was like watching a masterclass in small unit tactics. "This is impossible," he whispered again. "There is that word one more time," Torres said, ducking as plasma fire scorched the air where her head had been. She came up throwing, and another Brukari soldier went down with a piece of metal embedded in his weapon's power cell. The resulting explosion took out 2 more. "Commander," she said, grabbing him by the collar and pulling him behind cover, "let me explain something about human military doctrine. We do not just train our soldiers to fight. We train them to win. We train them to adapt. We train them to turn any environment into a weapon." As if to prove her point, one of the human prisoners had rigged some kind of electrical trap using exposed wiring and metal fragments. 3 Brukari soldiers went down convulsing as they triggered it. "We also train them to be creative," Torres added. "Human creativity, applied to combat situations, tends to produce results that other species find surprising." The battle was turning into a rout. The Brukari security forces, trained to deal with conventional threats, were completely unprepared for human ingenuity applied to warfare. Every advantage they possessed, the humans had found a way to neutralize or turn against them. "Call them off," Torres said quietly, her voice cutting through the sound of combat. "Call off your troops, and let us talk." Zalar looked at the carnage around him. His security teams were falling back, leaving wounded comrades behind. The humans were not pursuing, content to hold their position, but their message was clear. This was just the beginning. "Stand down," he called into his communicator. "All security teams, fall back to defensive positions. Do not advance on detention level 7. The shooting stopped, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the groans of wounded Brukari and the steady hum of damaged electronics. "Thank you, Commander," Torres said politely. "Now, as I was saying, we need to discuss the release of our people on sublevel 4. And I should mention that my patience is running out." She looked at her improvised timepiece, carved into the wall next to her map. "You now have 4 minutes and 37 seconds to contact your superior. After that, we are going to come looking for our people ourselves. And Commander..." She met his eyes directly. "When humans come looking for their own, they do not knock politely on doors." Zalar activated his emergency communicator, connecting directly to High Command. "This is Detention Commander Zalar requesting immediate conference with Facility Director Haxton. We have a code red situation on level 7. A pause, then a new voice crackled through the speaker. Deeper, more authoritative, more dangerous. "This is Director Haxton. Report." Torres held up her hand, indicating that Zalar should let her speak. "Director Haxton," she said clearly, "this is Captain Maya Torres, Terran Defense Force. I believe you have some of my people on sub-level 4. I would like them back. Another pause. When Haxton spoke again, his voice carried a cold amusement. Captain Torres, how unexpected. I was under the impression that you were sedated. I was under the impression that your facility was secure, Torres replied smoothly. It seems we were both mistaken. Indeed, I understand you have created some difficulties for my security teams. I prefer to think of it as a learning opportunity, Torres. Your people have learned that human prisoners are not as helpless as they assumed. I have learned that Brakari's security protocols have some significant vulnerabilities. Everyone has learned something valuable today. And what exactly do you want, Captain? The immediate release of all human prisoners, safe passage off this station for all Terran personnel, and a personal guarantee that no further experiments will be conducted on human subjects. Haxton's laughter echoed through the communicator. You are hardly in a position to make demands, Captain. You may have surprised my security teams, but you are still trapped on a single level of a heavily fortified facility. You have no weapons, no allies, and no way to reach the other prisoners. Torres smiled. Director, you are making the same mistake your security teams made. You are assuming I am trapped here with you. She activated the facility's schematic again, highlighting several key systems. I am not trapped here with you, Director. You are trapped here with me, and I have spent the last 3 rotations learning everything there is to know about your facility's weaknesses. Meaning that if my people are not released within the next... Torres checked her timepiece again. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I am going to demonstrate why humans are considered the most dangerous species in known space. You are bluffing. Torres's expression became deadly serious. Director Haxton, I want you to access your facility's central computer and run a security diagnostic on sub-level 4. Zalar could hear typing through the communicator, followed by a long pause. That is impossible. Paxton's voice had lost its confident tone. What is impossible, Director? Torres asked sweetly. The security locks on sub-level 4 show signs of tampering, multiple system intrusions, compromised access protocols. But you have been confined to level 7, have I? Torres asked. Or have I just been very, very quiet about my evening walks? The implications hit Zalar like a physical blow. If Torres had somehow accessed sub-level 4, if she had compromised those security systems, you see, Director, Torres continued, while your guards were chatting about facility operations within earshot of my cell, they mentioned something interesting, something about ventilation shafts that connect all levels of the facility, something about maintenance access tunnels that bypass standard security checkpoints. She gestured to one of the other human prisoners, who held up what appeared to be a small electronic device, and while I was supposedly unconscious, I was actually taking little trips through your facility, learning the layout, identifying weak points, and most importantly, placing a few surprises in strategic locations. What kind of surprises? Axton's voice was barely a whisper. The kind that go boom? Director, you have 67 seconds to release my people and begin evacuation procedures. After that, things are going to get very loud, very quickly. Torres held up the device, which was now beeping softly. 59 seconds. Director? I would not waste time confirming whether I am bluffing. Humans generally do not bluff about things like this. The sound of frantic typing came through the communicator. 50 seconds. Wait. I am accessing the systems now. The prisoners will be released. All of them, Director. Every human in this facility. 45 seconds. Yes, all of them. But you must disarm whatever devices you have placed. A full evacuation will take time. Torres smiled. Then I suggest you move quickly, Director. Humans are many things, but patient is not usually one of them. She looked around at her fellow prisoners, all of whom were watching her with expressions of fierce pride and absolute confidence. 30 seconds, Director. The release orders are being transmitted now. All human prisoners are being brought to the main docking bay. 20 seconds. Captain Torres, please. I am ordering the evacuation. Torres paused, her finger hovering over the device. 10 seconds, Director. The facility's evacuation alarms began blaring. 5 seconds. They are coming. The prisoners are being released. Torres pressed a button on the device. The beeping stopped. Congratulations, Director. You have just learned the most important lesson about dealing with humans. What lesson? Torres stood, dusting off her prison uniform with casual dignity. We do not make empty threats. When a human tells you something is going to happen, it is going to happen. The only variable is whether you are going to cooperate or whether you are going to make it more difficult than it needs to be. She gestured to the assembled human prisoners. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears our stay at this lovely facility is coming to an end. I suggest we make our way to the docking bay to collect our people and arrange transportation home. As they began moving toward the exit, Zalar found his voice. Captain Torres? She turned back to him. How? He asked. How did you plan all this? How did you access systems you should not have been able to reach? How did you coordinate with prisoners you never met? Torres considered the question seriously. Commander, the thing you and your people never understood is that humans do not just survive. We excel. We adapt. We overcome. When you put us in impossible situations, we make the impossible possible. She paused at the doorway. But most importantly, we never ever give up on our own. When you took human prisoners, you did not just capture individuals. You declared war on our entire species. And humans, Commander, are very, very good at war. With that, she led her people out of detention level 7, leaving behind a facility full of Brekkari who were just beginning to understand that they had seriously underestimated their human captives. But this was only the beginning. On sublevel 4, more human prisoners were being released. Prisoners who had endured days or weeks of experimentation. Prisoners who had been pushed beyond their limits and had found new reserves of strength. Prisoners who were now free, angry, and ready to show their captors exactly what humans were capable of when properly motivated. Director Haxton was about to learn that rescuing 17 humans from detention level 7 was not the end of Captain Torres's plan. It was just phase 1. Commander Zalar followed Captain Torres and her liberated prisoners through the facility corridors, his plasma rifle useless in his trembling hands. The human woman moved with the confidence of someone who owned the place, not someone who had been a prisoner mere minutes ago. Behind them, the sounds of evacuation echoed through the station. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and the constant blare of alarms made rational thought nearly impossible. Captain? One of the human prisoners, a scarred woman named Lieutenant Sarah Blake, jogged up beside Torres. I am picking up chatter on their security frequencies. Sounds like they are having trouble with the sub-level 4 releases. Torres smiled without slowing her pace. Define trouble, Lieutenant. Well, apparently some of our people down there were not as cooperative during their captivity as we were up here. The Brekkari are calling for medical teams and structural engineers. Zalar's blood chilled. What does that mean? Torres glanced back at him with mock sympathy. Oh, Commander, it means that while you were keeping us comfortable up on level 7, your friends downstairs were being a bit more hands-on with their research subjects. They reached an intersection, and Torres held up a hand to halt the group. She pressed her ear to the wall, listening intently. 16 heartbeats, she murmured. Moving fast, armed, coming from Corridor 7 Alpha. How can you possibly know that? Zalar demanded. Torres tapped her ear. Enhanced hearing. Remember, your people really did not do their homework on human sensory capabilities. She turned to her team. Ambush positions. Non-lethal if possible. We need to keep moving. The human prisoners melted into defensive positions with practiced ease. Within seconds they had vanished into shadows and alcoves, leaving only Torres standing casually in the middle of the corridor. The Brekkari security team rounded the corner at full sprint, weapons raised and ready for combat. They found a single human woman standing with her hands clasped behind her back, looking for all the world like she was waiting for a bus. Gentlemen, Torres said pleasantly, you seem to be in a hurry. Important meeting to attend? The lead Brekkari soldier, Sergeant Vokhtar, aimed his weapon directly at her chest. Surrender immediately. You are in violation of facility security protocols. Actually, Torres replied, tilting her head thoughtfully, I think you will find that I am in full compliance with facility evacuation procedures. Director Haxton ordered all human prisoners to report to the main docking bay. I am simply following orders. You are not authorized to be in this section of the facility. Torres sighed. Sergeant Voktar, is it? Tell me, in your security training, did anyone ever explain the concept of situational awareness? Voktar's mandibles clicked in confusion. What are you talking about? Well, Torres said, counting on her fingers, you have 16 troops. I appear to be one unarmed human. You have me outnumbered 16-1. Overwhelming odds in your favor. Exactly. So surrender. But here is the thing about situational awareness, Sergeant. It is not just about counting the enemies you can see. It is about recognizing the ones you cannot see. Voktar's eyes widened as he suddenly understood. But it was too late. The human prisoners struck from all directions simultaneously. Years of military training and weeks of pent-up rage combined into a perfectly coordinated assault that neutralized the entire security team in under 30 seconds. Nicely done, Torres commented, stepping over the unconscious Brakari soldiers. Remember, we want these ones alive. They are going to help us carry our people to the docking bay. As her team efficiently stripped the Brakari of weapons and equipment, Torres activated one of their communicators. Director Haxton, this is Captain Torres. I wanted to thank you for sending us an escort, though I have to say their customer service skills could use some improvement. Haxton's voice crackled with fury. Captain, you are testing my patience. Oh, Director, you have not seen anything yet, Torres replied cheerfully. I am just getting warmed up. Now about those prisoners on sub-level 4. My sources tell me you are having some difficulties with the release procedures. Some of your people have proven uncooperative. Torres's voice went cold. Uncooperative how, Director? A long pause. Then Haxton's voice, more subdued. Several subjects have barricaded themselves in the laboratory complex. They have taken hostages. 2 of my researchers are trapped inside. I see. And why exactly have my people taken hostages, Director? Another pause. There may have been some resistance to the evacuation procedures. Torres closed her eyes, visibly controlling her temper. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly quiet. Director Haxton, I am going to ask you a very simple question, and I want a very simple answer. What did your people do to my soldiers? The research was necessary. We needed to understand human physiology, human psychology, human military capabilities. What did you do? The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Finally, Haxton spoke, his words barely audible. Neural probes, pain tolerance testing, psychological conditioning experiments, combat stimulation scenarios. We needed to understand what makes humans so effective in warfare. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop 10 degrees. Every human prisoner had gone completely still, their faces masks of barely controlled fury. I see, Torres said, her voice now devoid of all warmth. Director, you have just made this personal. Captain, you must understand. The research was vital to galactic security. Humans are spreading throughout the galaxy. We needed to know how to defend against your species if necessary. Torres began walking again, her stride purposeful and deadly. The human prisoners followed, their improvised weapons now held with lethal intent. Director, let me explain something about human psychology to you. We have a concept called proportional response. When someone threatens us, we threaten them back. When someone attacks us, we attack them back. But when someone tortures our people— Torres paused at an intersection, checking her mental map. When someone tortures our people, proportional response goes out the window. They had reached the main elevator shaft. Torres examined the control panel, then pulled out one of the devices she had taken from the unconscious Brakari soldiers. You see, Director, torture is not just an attack on an individual. It is an attack on our entire species. It is a declaration that you consider us less than sapient, less than worthy of basic rights, less than people. She began reprogramming the elevator controls with swift, efficient movements. And when you declare war on humanity itself, Director, you get to meet the humans who specialize in making other species regret their life choices. The elevator arrived, but instead of the empty car they expected, it was filled with Brakari soldiers in full combat armor. "Surprise," Torres said conversationally, then pressed a button on the Brakari device. The soldiers' armor suddenly locked up, powered servos freezing in place. They toppled over like statues, completely immobilized but otherwise unharmed. "Electromagnetic pulse," Torres explained to Zalar's shocked expression. "Your armor is very impressive, but it relies heavily on electronic systems. Humans have been dealing with EMP weapons for centuries." She stepped into the elevator, gesturing for her people to follow. "Plus, while I was taking my evening walks through your facility, I may have left a few modifications to your equipment." Amazing what you can accomplish with spare parts and a basic understanding of electronics. As they descended towards sub-level 4, Torres continued her conversation with Director Haxton. "Now, Director, about those hostages. I am going to need you to patch me through to whoever is leading the resistance down there." "I cannot do that. They have refused all communication attempts." "Have you tried asking nicely?" "Captain, this is not a joke. 2 of my researchers are in serious danger." "Good," Torres said flatly. "Maybe they should have thought about that before they started torturing human prisoners." The elevator stopped at sub-level 4, and the doors opened to reveal a scene of controlled chaos. Brakari medical teams were treating wounded personnel while security forces maintained a perimeter around what appeared to be a heavily barricaded laboratory complex. Torres stepped out of the elevator, and immediately every Brakari weapon swung toward her. "Gentlemen," she announced loudly, "I am Captain Maya Torres, and I am here to collect my people. I suggest you lower your weapons and step aside." "You are not authorized to be in this area," shouted a Brakari officer. "Return to the elevator immediately." Torres ignored him, walking directly toward the barricaded laboratory. As she approached, a voice called out from inside. "Identify yourself." "Captain Maya Torres, Terran Defense Force. Serial number 77 Alpha 926. I am here to bring you home, soldiers." The laboratory doors opened slightly, and a human face appeared. Male, mid-30s, with the lean build and alert eyes of Special Forces. His face was marked with the telltale scars of neural probe insertion. "Captain Torres?" "Ma'am, this is Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb. We have a situation here." "I can see that, Sergeant. How many of our people are in there?" 14, ma'am. Plus 2 Brakari hostages." "Condition of our people?" Webb's expression darkened. "Functional, ma'am, but angry. Real angry." "I understand, Sergeant. And the hostages?" "Alive and unharmed, ma'am." "For now," Torres nodded. "Sergeant, I need you to release the hostages and bring our people out. We have transportation arranged." "Ma'am, with respect, these particular hostages were personally involved in the experiments. The team is not real enthusiastic about letting them go." Torres considered this for a moment. "Sergeant, patch me through to your team leader." A new voice came through the comm system. Female, older, with the kind of authority that came from years of combat command. "This is Colonel Sarah Kane." "Who am I speaking to?" "Colonel, this is Captain Torres. I understand you have some grievances with your hosts." Kane's laughter was bitter. "Grievances? That is one way to put it, Captain. These bastards have been using us as lab rats for weeks. Neural probes, pain tolerance tests, psychological conditioning. They wanted to see how much damage human minds could take before breaking." "And did any of you break, Colonel?" "Hell no. But they sure as hell tried." Torres smiled grimly. "Colonel, I need you to release the hostages and bring your people out. We have bigger fish to fry." "Captain, these 2 particular fish were the ones designing the experiments. They were taking notes while they tortured my people. I am not inclined to let them walk away." "Colonel, I understand your feelings, but killing them serves no purpose. Letting them live to report back to their superiors about what happens when you mess with humans. On the other hand." A pause. "I am listening, Captain. Think about it, Colonel. Dead scientists tell no tales. But scientists who have witnessed human capabilities firsthand, who have seen what we can accomplish when properly motivated, who can report back about the price of treating humans as experimental subjects." Another pause, longer this time. "You want them to spread the word." I want them to make sure this never happens again, Colonel. Fear is a much more effective deterrent than martyrdom. The Director Haxton's voice crackled through the facility communications system. Captain Torres, what are you doing? You said you would release the hostages. And I will, Director. But first, I think your researchers should have a chance to present their findings to their colleagues. After all, they have gathered some very valuable data about human psychology. The laboratory doors opened, and Colonel Kane emerged, followed by 13 other human prisoners. They moved with the careful precision of soldiers who had been pushed beyond their limits and had found new reserves of strength. Behind them came 2 Brakari researchers, Dr. Nexon and Dr. Torvak, both looking like they had seen the face of death and found it wearing human features. Dr. Nexon, Torvad said pleasantly, I understand you have been studying human pain tolerance. I hope your research has been educational. Dr. Nexon's response was barely a whisper. Your people, they do not break. We tried everything. Neural probes, sensory deprivation, psychological conditioning. They adapt, they endure, they find strength. We never knew existed. And what conclusions have you drawn from this research, Doctor? That we made a terrible mistake, Dr. Torvak spoke up, his voice shaking. We thought humans were just another species. We thought we could study you, catalog you, understand you. We never realized what, Doctor? That humans are not just another species. You are something else entirely. Something that should not exist in a rational universe. Torres nodded approvingly. Now that, Doctor, is the kind of scientific insight that could prevent future misunderstandings. She turned to address the assembled Brakari personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just received a very expensive education about human capabilities. I suggest you make good use of it. Director Haxton's voice came through the speakers again, strained and desperate. Captain, the evacuation is complete. All human prisoners have been released. Your ships are waiting at the docking bay. Please, just take your people and leave. Torres looked around at the assembled humans. 31 soldiers who had endured capture, imprisonment and torture and had emerged stronger than ever. Director, we will be leaving momentarily. But first, I think there is one more lesson your facility needs to learn. What lesson? Torres activated the device she had been carrying, the one that had been beeping earlier. The lesson about what happens when you underestimate human capabilities. The device chirped once, then went silent. Captain, what have you done? Nothing irreversible, Director. I have simply activated a few modifications I made to your facility's systems during my evening walks. In approximately 10 minutes, every non-essential system in this complex will shut down. Life support will remain functional, but computers, weapons, security systems and communications will be offline for approximately 72 hours. But that will leave us defenseless. Exactly. For 3 days you will be as helpless as my people were when you captured them. For 3 days you will experience what it feels like to be at the mercy of others. For 3 days you will have time to think about whether experimenting on sentient beings was really such a good idea. Torres began walking toward the elevator, her people falling into formation around her. Oh, and Director? I have taken the liberty of broadcasting the details of your research program to several human news networks. By the time your systems come back online, the entire galaxy will know what you have been doing here. You cannot do this. We have diplomatic immunity. Had diplomatic immunity, Director. Past tense. When you started torturing human prisoners, you voided any protection you might have had under galactic law. The elevator arrived, and the humans began boarding. Captain? Zalar spoke up suddenly. What about me? What about my personnel? Torres looked at him thoughtfully. Commander, you and your people are in an interesting position. You can either be remembered as the Brakari who participated in war crimes against humanity, or you can be remembered as the ones who helped end those crimes. What do you mean? I mean that in about 3 days, human ships are going to arrive here to collect evidence of what happened. When they do, they are going to need witnesses, credible witnesses who can testify about the conditions they found, the treatment of prisoners, and the cooperation they received from Brakari personnel. Zalar's mandibles clicked nervously. And if we cooperate, Then you get to go home to your families with a story about how you helped rescue human prisoners from an illegal research facility. If you do not cooperate, Torres shrugged. Well, let us just say that humans have very long memories, and we are very good at holding grudges. The elevator doors closed, and they began ascending toward the docking bay. Colonel Kane, Torres said quietly, how are your people holding up? Kane's expression was grim but determined. They are good soldiers, Captain. They will recover. But this changes things. How so? Before this, humans were just another species trying to find their place in the galaxy. But after what happened here, after what they tried to do at us, Kane looked directly at Torres. After this, every human in the galaxy is going to know that we are at war. Whether we wanted it or not, Torres nodded slowly. Then we had better make sure we win. The elevator reached the docking bay level, and the doors opened to reveal a sight that made Zalar's blood freeze. The bay was filled with human ships, not the small transport vessels he had expected, but full-sized warships bristling with weapons and armor. Captain, Lieutenant Blake said quietly, the cavalry has arrived. Torres smiled as she saw the lead ship's markings. The TDF Retribution, flagship of the 3rd Fleet's Rapid Response Division. Actually, Lieutenant, I think the cavalry has been here for a while. They were just waiting for us to finish our business inside. As they walked toward the waiting ships, Zalar finally found his voice. Captain Torres, there is something I do not understand. How did your fleet know to come here? How did they know you were captured? Torres looked back at him with amusement. Commander, do you really think we came to this facility unprepared? Do you think human military intelligence is so incompetent that we would send a research team into hostile territory without backup? The implications hit Zalar like a physical blow. You planned this, all of it. The capture, the imprisonment, the escape. It was all planned. Not planned, Commander. Anticipated. Human military doctrine includes contingencies for personnel capture and rescue. When my research team failed to report in, the response was automatic. They reached the lead transport ship, where a human officer in full military dress was waiting. Captain Torres, the officer said formally, Admiral Richardson sends his compliments. The fleet is ready to depart on your order. Thank you, Commander Hayes. What is the status of the facility? All human personnel accounted for. Evidence collection teams are standing by. The facility's defensive systems have been neutralized. Torres turned back to Zalar one final time. Commander, you have a choice to make. In approximately 6 hours, human investigators are going to arrive here to document what happened. They are going to interview witnesses, collect evidence, and prepare a report for the Galactic Council. She paused at the transport's boarding ramp. You can either be part of that investigation, helping to ensure that justice is served and that this never happens again, or you can try to cover up what happened here and face the consequences when the truth comes out anyway. Zalar looked around at his facility, at his personnel, at the evidence of human capabilities that surrounded him. What guarantee do I have that cooperating will protect my people? You have my word, Commander. And the word of a human soldier is not given lightly. As the human transport lifted off, Zalar watched through the viewport as the rest of the human fleet maintained position around the facility. 37 warships, each one capable of reducing the entire complex to debris in minutes. But they were not attacking. They were waiting. Waiting for the investigation. Waiting for justice to be served through proper channels. Unless, of course, justice was not served. In which case, Zalar suspected, the human concept of proportional response would be demonstrated in ways that would make today's event seem like a polite disagreement. As the transport docked with the flagship, Torres activated the facility's communication system one final time. Director Haxton, this is Captain Torres. I wanted to leave you with one final thought. What is that, Captain? Today you learned what happens when you capture human soldiers. I hope you never have to learn what happens when you kill them. The transmission ended, leaving the facility in ominous silence. On the bridge of the TDF Retribution, Admiral Richardson greeted Torres with a mixture of relief and professional pride. Captain, your report? Mission accomplished, Admiral. All personnel recovered. Evidence secured. The Brekari have received a comprehensive education in human capabilities, and the facility's research data. Torres held up a data storage device. Complete records of their experiments, sir. Names, dates, procedures, results. Everything we need to present to the Galactic Council. Admiral Richardson nodded grimly. This changes everything, Captain. When the galaxy learns what happened here, when they understand what the Brakari were trying to do. Yes, sir. The question is whether we use this as an opportunity to establish clear boundaries for human treatment, or whether we let it escalate into something bigger. The choice may not be ours to make, Captain. The Brakari Confederation is going to have to answer for this. And depending on their response, Torres looked out at the stars, where other human fleets were already moving to secure human colonies and research stations throughout the galaxy. Sir, I think we are about to find out just how far other species are willing to push humanity before we push back. Admiral Richardson activated the fleet communications system. All ships. This is Admiral Richardson. Mission accomplished. All human personnel recovered. We are returning to base to begin Phase 2. Phase 2, sir? Torres asked. Captain, rescuing our people was just the beginning. Now we make sure this never happens again, to anyone, anywhere. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Brakari facility isolated and defenseless, Director Haxton stared at the empty space where the human ships had been. He was beginning to understand that capturing and experimenting on human prisoners had not been a research project. It had been a declaration of war, and humanity, it seemed, was very good at war indeed. 3 days after the human fleet departed, Ambassador Kelthara of the Galactic Council received an urgent transmission that would change the course of interstellar politics forever. The message was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying. This is Admiral Richardson of the Terran Defense Force. We need to talk. Kelthara stared at the holographic display in her private chambers aboard the Council station, her forearms trembling slightly as she absorbed the implications. In 2 centuries of diplomatic service, she had never received a direct military communication from any species. Such things simply did not happen in civilized galactic society. Computer, analyze transmission origin and fleet composition. The results made her stomach lurch. The human transmission was coming from a position just outside Council space, where long-range sensors detected no fewer than 200 human warships in perfect battle formation. 200 ships. The humans had mobilized what appeared to be their entire military in response to whatever had happened at the Brakari research facility. Computer, locate Ambassador Zeltron of the Brakari Confederation. Priority Alpha. Ambassador Zeltron is currently in emergency session with the Confederation High Command. He has been unreachable for 72 hours. Kelthara closed her eyes. In her experience, when diplomats became unreachable during a crisis, it meant they were either dead or desperately trying to avoid responsibility for something catastrophic. Computer, connect me to Admiral Richardson. The holographic display flickered, then resolved into the image of a human male in military uniform. Kelthara had met humans before, but this one was different. His eyes held the kind of cold fury that she had only seen in apex predators defending their young. Ambassador Kelthara, Richardson said without preamble. Thank you for taking my call. We have a situation that requires immediate Council attention. Admiral, I must protest. Military communications should go through proper diplomatic channels. With respect, Ambassador, those channels have proven inadequate. 3 weeks ago, a Brakari military facility captured 31 human personnel and subjected them to illegal experimentation. The Confederation has refused all diplomatic contact since we recovered our people. Kelthara felt the color drain from her skin. Experimentation? Admiral, surely you are mistaken. The Brakari are signatories to the Sentient Rights Accords. They would never. They would, and they did. Richardson's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. We have complete documentation, video records, testimony from survivors, and something else, Ambassador. What else? We have 2 Brakari researchers who are very eager to discuss their findings with the Galactic Council. It seems they learned some interesting things about human physiology and psychology during their experiments. The transmission shifted, and Kelthara found herself looking at 2 Brakari scientists who appeared to be in a state of psychological shock. Ambassador, Dr. Nexon spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. We made a terrible mistake. We thought humans were just another species. We thought we could study them, understand them, predict their responses. We were wrong. Explain. Dr. Torvak leaned forward, his eyes wide with something approaching religious terror. Humans do not follow the same biological rules as other sapient species. They adapt in real time. They develop immunities to toxins while being poisoned. They grow stronger under stress. They find reserves of capability that should not exist. That cannot be scientifically accurate, Kelthara protested. We have the data, Dr. Nexon continued. Neural probe recordings showing human brain activity under extreme stress. Instead of breaking down, their neural pathways restructure themselves to handle greater cognitive loads. Instead of succumbing to psychological conditioning, they develop counter-strategies and mental defenses. Admiral Richardson reappeared on the transmission. Ambassador, we are not just talking about enhanced physical capabilities. We are talking about a species that becomes more dangerous the more pressure you apply. A species that treats impossible odds as a personal challenge. Kelthara sat back in her chair, processing the implications. Admiral, what exactly are you asking of the Council? We are asking for justice, Ambassador. We are asking for assurance that this will never happen again. And we are asking for recognition of certain fundamental truths about human capabilities that the galaxy needs to understand. And if the Council refuses, Richardson's expression became absolutely arctic. Then the Council will learn those truths the hard way. Before Kelthara could respond, another transmission request came through, this one from Commander Zalar of the Brakari facility. Ambassador, you need to hear this, Richardson said. Commander Zalar has been very cooperative in documenting what happened. Haven't you, Commander? Zalar's image appeared alongside Richardson's, and Kelthara was shocked by what she saw. The proud Brakari military officer looked like he had aged a decade in 3 days. Ambassador Kelthara, Zalar said quietly, I am formally requesting Council intervention. The humans, what they accomplished, it should not be possible. Commander? Please explain. A single human prisoner, apparently unconscious and helpless, managed to map our entire facility, hack our security systems, coordinate a prisoner revolt, and neutralize our security forces using improvised weapons. Your ambassador. She turned our own equipment against us. She used our standard procedures as weapons. Kelthara looked between the two transmissions. Commander, are you saying that one human defeated your entire facility? I am saying that one human made our entire facility irrelevant. She did not defeat us through superior firepower or technology. She defeated us by being more human than we thought possible. Admiral Richardson nodded grimly. Commander Zalar has agreed to testify before the Council about what he witnessed, as have 47 other Brakari personnel who were present during the rescue operation. Admiral, what exactly do you want the Council to do? 3 things, Ambassador. First, we want the Brakari Confederation to face formal charges for violations of the Sentient Rights Accords. Second, we want the establishment of clear protocols regarding the treatment of human personnel by non-human military forces. Third, Richardson paused and Kelthara had the distinct impression that this was the most important point. Third, we want the galaxy to understand that humanity is not just another emerging species seeking membership in galactic civilization. We are something else entirely, and everyone needs to adjust their expectations accordingly. The transmission ended, leaving Kelthara alone with her thoughts and a growing sense that the galaxy had just changed forever. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called throughout Council space. Representatives from every major species were demanding answers, explanations, and reassurances that their own territories were not under threat. The Vegan Trade Coalition wanted to know if human merchant vessels posed a security risk. The Centauri Alliance was demanding intelligence briefings on human military capabilities. The Sirius Compact was quietly moving their defense fleets to maximum readiness. But it was the transmission from the Brakari High Command that truly revealed the scope of the crisis. Council Station, this is Prime Minister Haxar of the Brakari Confederation. We formally request emergency mediation regarding recent incidents involving human military forces. Kelthara accepted the transmission, expecting to see the usual diplomatic posturing and damage control. Instead, she found herself looking at a government in complete panic. Prime Minister, The Council has received serious allegations regarding illegal experimentation on human prisoners. Can you respond to these charges? Kaxar's mandibles clicked nervously. Ambassador, we are prepared to make full reparations for any misunderstandings that may have occurred. We are also prepared to implement immediate policy changes regarding interaction with human personnel. Misunderstandings? Kelthara's voice sharpened. Prime Minister, we have documentation of torture, illegal detention, and medical experimentation. These are not misunderstandings. You do not understand, Kaxar burst out, his composure cracking. The humans have mobilized their entire military. 200 warships are positioned throughout our territory. They are not just demanding justice. They are demonstrating capability. Kelthara felt a chill run down her spine. Prime Minister, are you saying that human forces have invaded Confederation space? They have not invaded, Kaxar said desperately. They have simply arrived at every major military installation, at every government facility, at every research station. They are not attacking, they are not threatening, they are just there. The implications hit Kelthara like a physical blow. The humans had not just responded to the incident at one facility. They had simultaneously moved forces to counter every potential Brakari military asset. How is that possible? Our intelligence indicates that human territory is concentrated in a relatively small region of space. How could they coordinate such a massive deployment without detection? Kaxar's expression became haunted. Ambassador, I think our intelligence was wrong about a great many things regarding humans. Before Kelthara could respond, her communication system chimed with another incoming transmission. This one carried the encryption codes of the Council's top intelligence division. Ambassador, this is Director Vex of Council Intelligence. We have a priority alpha situation developing. Director, what kind of situation? Ma'am, our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive human fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Not just in response to the Brakari incident, but everywhere humans have any kind of presence. Kelthara stared at the intelligence director. How massive? Ma'am, we estimate over 1,500 human warships have simultaneously moved to defensive positions around human colonies, research stations, and diplomatic facilities. This represents a mobilization of military assets that we did not know humans possessed. 1,500 ships. Director, our estimates suggested that the entire human military consisted of perhaps 300 vessels. Yes, ma'am. Our estimates appear to have been significantly inaccurate. Kelthara closed her eyes, beginning to understand the scope of the problem. Director, are you telling me that humans have been concealing their true military capabilities? Either that, ma'am, or they have constructed and deployed over 1,000 warships in the past 72 hours, which would represent a manufacturing and logistics capability that exceeds anything in recorded galactic history. Another transmission request came through, this one from Admiral Richardson. Ambassador, Richardson said without preamble, I believe we need to continue our conversation. Admiral, I have just received reports of massive human fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Can you explain this? Certainly. When the Brakari captured and tortured human personnel, they declared war on our entire species. Not just on the individuals involved, not just on their immediate command structure, but on humanity itself. We responded accordingly. Admiral, our intelligence suggests you have mobilized over 1,500 warships. That represents a military capability far beyond what we believed humans possessed. Richardson smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Ambassador, your intelligence was based on what we allowed you to observe. Human military doctrine includes extensive provisions for operational security. We do not advertise our full capabilities unless absolutely necessary, and this situation qualifies as absolutely necessary. When someone starts experimenting on human prisoners, yes. When someone decides to study us like laboratory animals, yes. When someone demonstrates that they view humans as less than sapient, yes. The transmission shifted to show a tactical display of the galaxy, with human fleet positions marked in red. Kelthara gasped at what she saw. Human forces were positioned at every major hyperspace junction, every trade route, every strategic choke point. In 72 hours, humanity had achieved a level of strategic dominance that should have taken decades to establish. Admiral, this is an act of war against the entire galactic community. No. Ambassador, this is an act of preparation. We are not attacking anyone. We are not threatening anyone. We are simply making it clear that any future attempts to capture, experiment on, or otherwise mistreat human personnel will be met with an immediate and overwhelming response. But you have effectively blockaded galactic trade. We have secured our defensive positions. Trade vessels are free to move as they always have, provided they do not attempt to interfere with human operations or transport restricted materials. Elphara felt the galaxy shifting around her. Admiral, what exactly do you consider restricted materials? Weapons, military technology, and any equipment that could be used for biological or psychological experimentation on sentient beings. The communication was interrupted by an emergency alert from the Council's Military Intelligence Division. Ambassador, this is General Korvac. We have a developing situation at the Altair Trade Hub. What kind of situation, General? A vegan cargo vessel attempted to transport restricted biotechnology through human-controlled space. The humans interdicted the vessel and are currently conducting a full inspection of its cargo. Kelthara's blood ran cold. The Altair Trade Hub was one of the busiest commercial centers in the galaxy. If humans were stopping and inspecting cargo vessels, General, what was the nature of this restricted biotechnology? Neural interface equipment, ma'am. The kind used in advanced interrogation systems. Admiral Richardson reappeared on the transmission. Ambassador, we found the cargo manifest very interesting. The biotechnology was being shipped to a Regalian research facility that specializes in xenobiology studies. Studies that bear a remarkable resemblance to what the Brakari were doing to our people. Admiral, you cannot simply stop and search civilian vessels. We can and we will, Richardson replied flatly. Any vessel carrying equipment that could be used to experiment on sentient beings will be inspected. Any facility conducting such experiments will be shut down. Any species that decides to treat humans as research subjects will discover why that is a very bad idea. The scope of the human response was becoming clear. This was not just retaliation for one incident. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Admiral, the Council cannot accept unilateral human control of galactic trade routes. Then the Council should have prevented the torture of human prisoners, Richardson said. Ambassador, for 2 centuries, humans have attempted to integrate peacefully into galactic civilization. We followed your laws, respected your customs, and tried to find our place in a community of species. His expression hardened. But integration requires mutual respect, and mutual respect requires understanding that humans are not subject to experimentation, not available for study, and not helpless when someone decides to test our limits. Before Kelthara could respond, another emergency transmission came through. This one from the Regalian Embassy, Council Station. This is Ambassador Thex of Rigel Prime. We are experiencing an unprecedented situation. Ambassador Thex, what is the nature of your situation? Human forces have surrounded our primary research station and are demanding immediate access to our xenobiology division. They claim we are conducting illegal experiments on sentient subjects. Kelthara looked at Admiral Richardson, who nodded slightly. Ambassador Thex, Richardson said, we have evidence that your research station has been conducting experiments on captured specimens from 17 different species, including 3 humans who were reported as missing in action during a shipping accident 6 months ago. That is impossible. Our research is purely academic. Then you will have no objection to allowing our investigators to confirm that. Richardson replied, unless of course you prefer to explain to the families of those missing humans why their loved ones ended up as research subjects in your laboratory. The transmission from Rachel Prime cut out abruptly. Kelthara stared at Admiral Richardson with growing horror. Admiral, how many species are involved in this? How widespread are these experiments? Ambassador, in the 3 days since we recovered our people from the Brakari facility, we have identified 17 different research programs across 9 species that involve illegal experimentation on sentient beings, some using prisoners of war, some using captured civilians, some using individuals who were reported as missing but were actually kidnapped for research purposes. The magnitude of the revelation was staggering. Admiral, are you suggesting that there is a galaxy-wide conspiracy to experiment on sentient beings? Not a conspiracy, Ambassador. Just a general assumption that certain species are available for study. That some people matter less than others. That scientific curiosity justifies any treatment of subjects deemed primitive or expendable. Richardson leaned forward, his eyes blazing with cold fury. But here is the thing about humans, Ambassador. We do not accept that some people matter less than others. We do not tolerate the abuse of any sentient being, and we absolutely will not allow anyone to continue treating intelligence gathering and scientific research as justification for torture. Admiral, what exactly are you demanding? 3 things, Ambassador. First, the immediate release of all sentient beings being held for experimental purposes by any species in Council space. Second, the establishment of universal protocols for the treatment of prisoners, research subjects, and anyone else in the custody of government or scientific institutions. Third, the recognition that humans will enforce these protocols whether the Council agrees or not. And if we refuse, Admiral Richardson activated a galactic display showing human fleet positions. But now there were even more red markers than before. Ambassador, in the past 6 hours we have been contacted by representatives of 43 different species whose people are being held in research facilities throughout Council space. Species who have been trying to get Council attention for years about missing persons, illegal detention, and unethical research practices. What does that have to do with human demands? It means we are no longer acting alone, Ambassador. 43 species have formally requested human assistance in locating and recovering their people. We are now leading a coalition that represents over 60% of the galactic population. Kelthara felt the political landscape shifting beneath her feet. Admiral, you are threatening the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. No, Ambassador. We are offering to fix it. The current structure allows the strong to prey on the weak, allows scientific institutions to operate without oversight, and allows government agencies to classify entire populations as expendable. That structure is broken, and it needs to be replaced. With what? With a system that recognizes the fundamental rights of all sentient beings, with institutions that answer to more than just their own governments, with enforcement mechanisms that actually protect people instead of just protecting political interests. Admiral Richardson stood, and Kelthara could see dozens of other human officers behind him, all wearing the same expression of absolute determination. Ambassador, the galaxy is going to change. The only question is whether it changes through negotiation and mutual agreement, or whether it changes because humans and our allies make it change. Admiral, you are threatening war against the entire galactic community. No, Ambassador, we are promising peace, real peace. Not the kind of peace that exists only for those strong enough to defend themselves, but the kind of peace that protects everyone, even humans, even species that others consider primitive or expendable. Richardson activated another display, this one showing the results of coordinated rescue operations throughout the galaxy. In the past 6 hours, human and allied forces have liberated 417 sentient beings from research facilities across Council space. Representatives of 68 different species, including several that the Council presumed extinct. Presumed extinct? Not extinct, Ambassador. Just convenient research subjects. For species that wanted to study them without worrying about diplomatic consequences. The full scope of the horror was becoming clear. Admiral, are you telling me that the research establishment has been systematically kidnapping and experimenting on entire populations? Not the entire research establishment, Ambassador, but enough of it to constitute a clear pattern of abuse, and enough of it to justify a comprehensive response. Kelthara looked at the tactical displays, at the evidence of human capabilities, at the scope of the coalition that had formed around human leadership. Admiral, what exactly are you offering the Council? Partnership, Ambassador. The humans and our allies are prepared to work within existing galactic institutions, to establish universal rights protections, oversight mechanisms, and enforcement protocols. We are prepared to share technology, resources, and expertise to build a better system. And if we refuse, then we build that system ourselves, and the Council becomes irrelevant. Richardson's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, humans do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to dominate other species or impose our values on unwilling populations. We just want to live in a universe where sentient beings are treated as people, not as research materials. But if necessary, you will enforce that vision militarily. If necessary, yes, because the alternative is a galaxy where anyone can be kidnapped, tortured, and experimented on without consequence. Where scientific curiosity justifies any treatment of subjects deemed expendable. Where the strong prey on the weak without limit or oversight. Admiral Richardson looked directly at Kelthora. Ambassador, you have seen what humans can accomplish when properly motivated. You have seen what we are willing to do to protect our people. Now you need to decide whether you want us as partners in building a better galaxy, or whether you want to find out what happens when we decide to build that galaxy without you. Kelthora stared at the displays showing human fleet positions, coalition member species, and rescue operation results. The message was clear. The galaxy had fundamentally changed in 72 hours, and the only question was whether existing institutions would adapt or be replaced. Admiral Richardson, I will convene an emergency session of the full Galactic Council. We will discuss your proposals. Thank you, Ambassador. But understand that discussion time is limited. Every hour that passes means more sentient beings remain in illegal detention. More research subjects endure torture in the name of science. More people suffer while we debate the philosophical implications of treating them as people. How long are you prepared to wait for a council decision? 72 hours, Ambassador. After that, we proceed with or without council approval. The transmission ended, leaving Kelthora alone with the most difficult decision in council history. 3 days later, the Galactic Council voted 847 to 23 to adopt the Universal Sentient Rights Accords, establishing the first galaxy-wide protections for all intelligent beings and creating enforcement mechanisms with real power to protect them. The vote was not really about whether the accords were a good idea. The vote was about whether galactic civilization would adapt to the new reality or be replaced by something better. And as Ambassador Kelthora watched human and allied forces conducting rescue operations throughout Council space, she realized that Captain Maya Torres had not just escaped from a Brakari detention facility. She had escaped into a galaxy that was about to learn what happened when you underestimated humanity. The age of humans as a minor species seeking acceptance was over. The age of humans as protectors of the innocent had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same.